Good evening, everybody. Welcome once again to the Lepanto Institute's Anchor Team. I'm your host, Michael Hitchborn, and with me this evening is a friend of mine. He is a longtime network administrator or a network executive engineer. He's got tons of experience in the telecom industry, and we're going to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence in the Catholic Church and how things are going and what it means for us as Catholics. But of course, before we get into any of that, we're going to start with our prayer. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum. Benedicta tu in mulieribus et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus.
Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et hora mortis nostra. Amen.
Our Lady of Victory.
Pray for us.
In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. David John is my guest. He is, he's got kind of a great big bio here. I'm kidding. He's got a nice long CV and just tons of experience when it comes to the telecom industry. He runs the iCatholic mobile company, and he's also very, very strongly affiliated with our dear friends over at the Station of the Cross. I'll let David talk a little bit about that later in the program. But he is a seasoned telecom executive, U.S. Army intelligence veteran, and dedicated Catholic servant of God. He's created and managed mobile streaming services with over 100 million subscribers, mobile virtual network operators, and worked in his career for AT&T, Telefonica, Telecom Italia, and just a host of others. He knows the industry. So when he talks to us this evening about things related to technology and things related to artificial intelligence, he knows what he's talking about. David brought to my attention some concerns about artificial intelligence, especially as it is being used at the highest echelons of the Catholic Church. So I thought this would make a great topic for discussion. And David, thank you so much for joining the program.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
So before we get into the nuts and bolts of what's going on in the world right now, why don't you fill us in a little bit about your background? Tell us a little bit about what you've done, how you've come to be aware of artificial intelligence, and some of your experiences with it.
Thank you very much. So when we founded iCatholic Mobile, it's a Catholic mobile phone company focused on supporting Catholic media, traditional Catholic media, particularly religious orders and religious education, or orders that are involved in education, like the Slaves of the Immaculate Heart and others. We had a need. We were creating the company. We were building all the components for engaging a customer and being able to process, manage, and support their mobile services through the backbone network. And AI is a big part of that. AI is a tool that helps you scale your help desk, your customer care, particularly to offload when there's a lot of inquiries coming in and people have simple questions that can be handled in the chat. We've all seen them. We were interested in designing a chat that wasn't kind of circuitous, where it just keeps asking you questions until you just say, I'm done with this. I want to talk to a human and goodbye. So, that really took a lot of thinking and learning from that perspective. And we were also looking at how AI can help us create kind of, and other people have used this term, so to speak, a daily wire for everything Catholic. So first was, how do you use AI to just answer basic questions? Let's go out and look for information from a repository of data, both external and internal, that we feed it and train it to learn. The information that it gets from engaging customers, it continues to self-improve. And then taking that to the next step, to use AI to do some sort of support for us and doing very predictive analysis on all the different aspects and key performance indicators of the business. So AI, again, a very important part of helping companies scale and to get to market and to do things for customers more quickly. And then, of course, when we could get to our nirvana, which we've started recently with the introduction of a purity browser, a parental control support mechanism for consumers to put on any device in their home and to block all the bad stuff, and to regulate what's shown and what's not shown on the internet. And then the next, and where we're going with it next, is really where you start to get the power of AI, and that's in, kind of a predicting people's likes and dislikes based on past behavior and other information we give it to present content that's interesting and compelling. In our case, Catholic content. So in doing all that, we were searching for partners. We've started, me and a couple of my partners, as well as my own background, in what was called self-learning algorithms about 20 years ago, which is AI, right? Where you leverage the capabilities to connect, known as APIs, into Facebook and Google and Apple, and they sell you these licenses so that from the device you can look at, in a privacy conscious legal way, certain things that would help you predict the right song or the right plan for a customer. So we had some knowledge of it.
Before you get into this is all very technical, and I think that it's fascinating. It's very interesting. What I'd like to know is, what exactly is artificial intelligence? How does it work? What's the mechanism that we're talking about? Obviously, we're not talking about reasoned intelligence. It's not like it's actually using its own intellect to intuit an answer to a question, but it's a programmed intellect, which means that it's following an algorithm of some kind. So explain to us kind of the nuts and bolts. What is artificial intelligence? How does it work?
Well, I'm not really an expert in that as much as to give you the higher level that I'm more capable of addressing is that, AI from the purposes that we define is really based on taking knowledge quickly and finding it from a lot of different sources. So, in the old, it's really a fast way to traverse a database, or in this case, the world. So you control the internet, you control known information, you control information within the company's repository, and piece together in an extraordinarily fast way the answer that people are looking for. There's a lot more sophistication to the AIs that you see now with chat or GBT and all that, can go beyond presenting what it finds and decide based on what it considers relevant, a statement, information, and prioritize. And that's why with any AI chat type of tool, you need to read it, because it may not actually be where you want it to go. And the key thing is that it's self-learning. So it may present you an answer to a question, but 30 people later that are asking the same question, that answer continues to refine, because it will ask you, did you find what you were looking for? Yes, no. And then the administrators will go in and say, refine the answer and do some work on it. So between the drivers of the AI that own it, the companies, and the consumers interacting with it, it continues to refine answers and then store that somewhere. So that's in effect how it works. But at the end of the day, where AI is, from our perspective, is based on the quality of information that it has access to. So usually when you're setting up an AI for a particular purpose, the first thing you want to do is give it access to as much information that you believe is important, that you believe is true, that you believe is relevant for it to answer the questions. If it be to help you craft a homily or a speech, or if it be to help you write a paper, or if it be just to answer a simple question, when was Lepanto? And so the from our perspective, and where we were going with this is, how accurate is the information that we can get from the AI and present it? One of the challenges we had when we were looking at this, we were looking for a Catholic company and a Catholic AI. We try to stay in a Catholic ecosystem. So, and we found a couple of companies that are deeply engaged with AI, particularly for the Catholic Church, or with the Catholic Church, with the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, and those that have some sort of bona fides in that data being Catholic, for the reasons that we were saying, to present some sort of Catholic content to customers. And in that process, we started to understand that there were already a lot of initiatives within the church, and we were invited to Rome to join the Pontifical Society of Sciences, the Dicastery of the Formation of Faith, in October of last year,
Oh, wow.
to join a conference with hundreds of other people. But this is where the alarm bells went before we actually learned anything else. Is that the participants, the leaders, the drivers were Google, Dell, IBM, NBC, who brought us great Catholic content like the opening games of the Olympics. And the list goes on. Legionaries of Christ and a lot of other people that are out there, not as well known for tradition, dogma, and doctrine. Particularly when you look at Google and these companies and how they're involved in so many things that are anti-Catholic in all their other businesses.
Right.
And that caused us to want to, in fact, they're involved in many cases in subverting doctrine, tradition, and dogma and threatening Catholics.
Well,
So
and
this caused us to really open our eyes a lot more.
And as we learned from the 2020 election and the subsequent investigations that have gone into that, Google and several other companies, tech companies, were involved in censorship by changing the algorithms and by omitting search results for certain key bits of information. We know that certain pieces of information regarding, say, Donald Trump were omitted from search engine searches. On Facebook, algorithms were introduced into the Facebook algorithm so that if you were talking about Donald Trump, or if you were talking about certain other issues that came up that are still not allowed to be discussed on this particular platform, if you were talking about those things, you either got throttled, which is where they would slow down the reach of your post, or they would hit you with a strike and say, if you say something like this again, you're out, you're off. So all of that falls into artificial intelligence. So what you're describing is it's a tool and basically a software tool that allows you to quickly grab information using keywords from a very large set of data. And and from what I understand, the way it works is that it prioritizes the information based on several key factors. One would be how relevant it is to the search question. How many of these keywords fit together in the pattern of what they're looking for. This is why when Google first came around, you would see a little percentage at the end of the search query. It would say 95% or 88% or 77%. And those percentage marks were how relevant it was to what it was you were looking for, what your typed question would be. I still remember the search engine Ask Jeeves when search engines were still just becoming a thing back in the late 90s. You had Ask Jeeves, you had Bing, you had Excite. Google didn't really come on the scene until I think 1998 or 99. And when you were first using these search engines, you would simply type in a keyword or several keywords. That's all they would say. Ask Jeeves was the first one that said, put it in a complete question. And I thought that was very interesting. And I kept wondering, how is this software going to understand the question and the nature of the question? And at first it was really wonky. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense. And the search results you got back were a combination of, well, this is the definition of the question, why, along with some of the other search results that were keywords in your question. So it didn't work too well, but it seems that what they were doing, they were establishing this mode of asking to teach the artificial intelligence to match the question more perfectly to relevant answers based on this large pool of information. And the pool of information, the data set that they're pulling from, is anything on the internet. So if you've got a website or a Facebook post or an X account or whatever it was pulling data from all of those different things and mashing it together in this long list of search results. So this is kind of a long-winded way of saying or coming to the question, when we're talking about artificial intelligence, when we're talking about its use, especially within relation to what the Catholic Church wanted to do at this conference, it seems to me very deeply concerning that you would have people, as you mentioned, like Google and some of these other anti-Catholic platforms attending the conference, because then it becomes a matter of, well, either the bad guys are collaborating from within with other bad guys, or you have a situation where the bad guys on the outside, meaning Google and all of them, are looking for what is most important to the Catholic Church and how to undermine it. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I don't mean to be coy. I don't know. I have my suspicions and fears. Um, I think they're willingly participating to get more. I mean, it's a matter of control. They all have competing platforms. The church is developing their magisterial AI. Google's got their own. Everybody's got their own. But they're doing more than participating. They're on the board of directors for Humanity 2.0.
What is that?
I don't know. It's
Huh.
supposedly fostering the environment for human flourishing is all I can figure out.
What
What
was it called? Humanity
Humanity
2.0?
2.0, if you can tell me when you look at it, but they're the original folks that had the impetus to start the development of a magisterial AI, to hire the firm that's building it for they're an independent organization with a lot of Catholic clients, but they're at the center of organizing the conference, and so humanity's got that board. Um, I mean, when you read it, I thought Kamala Harris wrote it, because it's an organization that stops the impediment from human flourishing by encouraging the flourishing of young people's minds so that they will flourish in the future. And I'm not being facetious when you look at the site. It's really silly.
So I have the site here up on the screen. I don't know if you can see it.
Yes.
Okay, you can see it. Good. Um, as I'm looking at this, right off the bat, they have a quote they don't have anything that indicates what this is, just says Humanity 2.0. And then immediately afterward, they have a quote from Thomas Aquinas, which tells me that there's something about this site that is connected with the Catholic Church. And as you go down, it says, we are a human flourishing accelerator, whatever that means.
Mm-hmm.
Humanity 2.0 is a vehicle for facilitating collaborative ventures between the traditionally siloed public, private, and faith-based sectors. Faith-based, meaning not necessarily Catholic exclusively. Its mission is to identify impediments to human flourishing and then work collaboratively across sectors to remove them by sourcing and scalding bold and innovative solutions.
Yeah, I think the answer is in going to the About Us and checking out the board. It's I don't have the name handy. It was founded, and the CEO is a Catholic priest. You've got a
Yeah,
few.
Father Philip Larry.
Yeah, he among others that are involved are Legionaries of Christ. He's at
Huh.
Boston College, I think. The other one's the Pontifical in Rome. All of these folks are. Well, I think when you look at what there's a kind of a quote, but what they try to do is bring in diversity, to
Uh-huh.
bring in inclusion, to form bridges. So these are all the language that they use in their mission statements. But ultimately, the goal is, and the church has been no passive observer in the AI revolution. It's actively involved in its shaping, along with Google and these others. They're not participants. They're actively involved. They're on the board of this organization. They're the ones that contracted the company that built the AI, that sponsored financially the conference. But by combining cutting edge technology with the wisdom of the church, is the way they're looking at it. They're looking to promote the common good. And Prince Francis himself is very close to this, because they talk a lot about inclusiveness. They talk a lot about how to use it to improve the rights of immigrants. They are keen to make sure that AI doesn't widen the digital divide and the economic divide by those that have access to computers, hence AI, get a leg up on those that don't. I mean, honorable in its intention or its statement. Certainly, they want to be involved with bioethics, with the AI's use for the development of human embryos. They want to be involved, and rightly so, with a whole host of ethical concerns, all the way down to did Billy plagiarize Thomas Aquinas in his college paper? They're
Huh.
really worried about how AI and ethics, but everywhere you look on the internet or otherwise with the church and AI in the same sentence, it's all around the ethics. And in my opinion, that's a shiny object to look over here, because you're not looking at what you stated earlier, and that's the omissions. What's not being put in
Right.
for information? And we're going to get into that in a bit, exactly where the information is coming from, which is extremely alarming. But their stated purpose, the church's stated purpose for the use of AI, is evangelization, communications, and education. And that's exactly where Satan's going, right? After the kids,
Right.
after the next generation. I mean, I'm 62. I've only been involved in Latin Mass and in the more traditional world of the Catholic faith, although always reverent Novus Ordo, for 7 years of my life. I never knew what was omitted from the liturgy. Most of
Right.
these beautiful people that we know every day are great Catholics, don't know what was omitted. They don't know what was changed. So imagine now, if we don't know, 20 years from now, where your kids are formed, catechists are trained, homilies are created, seminarians are trained based on, and that's the stated purpose of the conference, is the end. That's the end result: communications, education, and evangelization. But what are they evangelizing? What are they communicating, and what are they educating? So
Right.
it really becomes alarming, because then you want to say, well, how are they interpreting? There's a lot of overarching and consistent themes that are underlying these discussions about an evolution and nuancing church's teaching versus the truth. I mean,
Well,
how
and
do you
that
nuance Christ?
that right there is the very definition of modernism.
Exactly.
Modernism doesn't want to have what they call the development of doctrine or the development of dogmas, which takes established truth and then helps to understand and broaden our understanding of that particular truth. It's like allowing a flower to bud and to open. So that would be the development of doctrine. But the evolution of doctrine is to take something that is and change it into something else. That's the very nature of what evolution means. So when they talk about the evolution of humanity, the evolution of doctrines, the evolution of society, they're talking about taking what it is and moving it into something else. So all of this is it's modernist in its thinking. And when they start talking about nuance, what they really mean is not a subtle difference or a subtle understanding, or putting something in a proper context. No, what they're saying is, well, you have to understand it from our point of view, and we're moving it into a new understanding of something that wasn't really meant to be understood by it to begin with. So when you're talking about the use of artificial intelligence for slowly transforming our perspectives and slowly transforming our understanding of the established truths of the church, that's very deeply concerning.
Well, it goes further too. This one of the statements coming out of it by the company building the AI is, quote, our AI is a big tent platform that embraces who writes this stuff, that embraces the diversity of of Catholic voices, reflecting on the spirit, moral, and social issues of the day. So buckle up. Don't expect content creators and contributors and data to always agree with each other, but rest assured, we're committing to building bridges between creators and helping to foster a greater understanding and respect, while at the same time having fun. Where's the doctrine? Where's the truth? Where's Augustine? Where are the fathers? Um, so I said, well, let's do some searches. So I picked something. I said, motu proprio. Why? I mean, I knew I was coming onto this show, and it's just, I think, Innocent the Eighth issued the first motu proprio probably just after Lepanto. And
Hmm.
so I'm curious, I wanted to look smart, and I wasn't, because I don't even know the name of the motu proprio he wrote. But I did know this: when I searched it, there was nothing for 400 years. The first motu proprio they even had out of 40 results was one by Pius XII. And then out of all 40 results, only two dealt that, and I know there was more than this published, but they had one, they obviously had Summorum Pontificum and Traditionis Custodes. But 60% of all of the information were from St. Francis. 10% from Benedict, 15% from John Paul II, 15% from John the 23rd and Paul VI combined. Everything except that one from Pius XII was post-Vatican II.
Hmm.
So when I dug deeper into what was going on, they said they are prioritizing documents from the last 60 years because it's easier to digitize them. They're largely digital, and that they're not in Latin or ancient Greek. Because, when John the Apostle wrote, he was writing in ancient Greek, and that's just too hard to nuance for a young person trying to understand Christ. So let's start, they'll get there eventually, but right now, so they say, they're not doing anything. And they said that Latin is particularly challenging. So those will come later. So I guess Aquinas, Augustine, Christendom. I mean, it's astounding that they even publicly would say such a thing like that. It's 60 years or later. But rest assured, if there's any conflict in the documents or in their information that's being fed into the AI in those last 60 years, they have a constant monitor of the dicastery of the formation of faith for clarification. The run by Cardinal Fernandez, the guy that brought you The Art of Kissing and Fiducia Supplicans. So, and I'm sorry for being, sarcastic, but at the end of the day, seriously now, we're checking any conflicts in theology derived only from the last 60 years with the dicastery of the formation of faith.
So
forget extra ecclesiam nulla salus. I mean, I think, to me, it sounds like they're trying to make one big Protestant AI.
Well, if I'm understanding this correctly, it's you know what it sounds like? It sounds like that Father Justin AI chatbot that was created by
Catholic Answers.
Yeah, Catholic Answers a number of years ago, or actually last year.
Now. They took the collar off.
Yeah, right.
No, he's still there. They just took
really?
the collar off. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. No, see, this is the problem though, because I remember that some of my friends were looking into this and they were asking it all kinds of questions, and the chat bot was an artificial intelligence chat bot, which means it was pulling from a data source and it was following a logical algorithm. And after a series of questions, they were able to get the thing to pronounce heresy, to say, well, therefore this is blah, blah, blah. And then it was a heretical statement. So, and it wasn't that hard. And I had people sending me screenshots of their conversations with this thing over and over and over, showing that they convinced it to spew heresy. And that was essentially the problem with it. But here's the thing. If that's kind of the nature of where things are going, and it's going to be monitored by the dicastery of Cardinal Fernandez, well, it seems to me problematic on several levels. First of all, how is he going to monitor everything to make sure that it's all in line with church teaching? And how is he, whose understanding of church teaching is dubious at best, going to be able to ensure that Catholic teaching is being enforced? I mean, this is ludicrous. It's lunacy, is what it is.
It really and completely is. But by the way, it's called Justin now, not Father Justin, because they took the cop. But he's actually still up there on Catholic Answers for all the reasons you said. But they didn't get rid of it completely. So now he's a lay theologian.
But
which
makes him about as good as Edward Schillebeck's.
Yeah. But the creators of this AI platform, say that any questions on Catholic teachings, practices, or other topics, are meant to help explain complex theological, philosophical, and historical concepts in a simple, understandable language. So, I mean, you get into philosophical, so Plato you know, you just wonder where it's going. I mean, and they're inputting and they're uploading 20, 30, 50, 60 documents a day. I don't know how many. Some of the sites are claiming that they have as many as 19,000, 20,000 documents, but there are millions that the Vatican's given them access to, millions of documents. And how are they being put in context, and is one, as you stated just now, very alarming challenge and valid question. But what gets me, and you asked earlier about what Google's intention is, I don't know, but the intention here is clearly to be the predominant source of teaching for the youth 10, 20 years ago. I mean, we're all what now, 60 years after Vatican II?
Yeah.
So, and we see where we are. Imagine 60 years from now. I mean, we'll be eating bread and drinking grape juice and at a picnic. I mean, I have no idea where it really seems, and again, I'm just using my personal observation and opinion, that this is an effort, an evil effort to subvert the teaching of the church and to take it to the next level where no one's really going to know the difference 30 or 40 years from now, because people just aren't going to pick up books.
Right. So, I mean, you talked about you mentioned that they were going to prioritize recent documents, specifically documents since the Second Vatican Council. Would some of those documents include some of the expositions, say, of Hans Kung or Yves Congar or Karl Rahner, who were the advisors at the Second Vatican Council and later came out, and I mean, they were absolute heretics. These men were heretics, but they were the experts at the Second Vatican Council, and they were using their teaching positions to proclaim heretical interpretations of these documents. So when it comes to these AI algorithms, do you think there's a possibility that those texts or some of those ideologies that were brought forward by them? I mean, we know that in 1976 you had the Call to Action Conference, and it was sponsored by the Diocese of Detroit, or the Archdiocese of Detroit. And with the Call to Action Conference, it was all heresy all the time, and they were trying to, the song of it was "Sing a New Church into Being." That was their song. And as they were singing this song, putting forth their idea of what this new church is, well, obviously, without the advent of artificial intelligence at that time, you have people in key positions who were spreading error throughout the church, and they were using documents to do so. They would cite Vatican II. They would cite certain other theologians, lay theologians, and in so doing, they would propagate these false ideologies by presenting nuance and the evolution of doctrinal understandings. I think that it's as long as you have artificial intelligence, you can have solid documents and then interpret them in very false ways. So if you have artificial intelligence and it's doing the interpreting for you, well, not only are you no longer thinking, but now you're just going to swallow hook, line, and sinker whatever this artificial intelligence puts forward, because it's being, supported by the Dicastery for the Defense of the Faith and all that kind of stuff. So it sounds great, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know how you can do it where you won't have that problem ultimately, except if you start with the church fathers and known truth, doctrine, and then following that with dogma and tradition. Because combined, I'm imagining that could in itself be a sanity check and prompt you to read further, so that if you get something false or based on these heretics, it could be presented that there could be a question here, so research the following. And they claim that at some point that it will be prompting people, but you do need to read on your own, like these fine labels: may cause death, may cause eternal damnation. Uh,
Right.
except this. But yeah, the one of the quotes they said, and the answer to your question is it in there? I can't tell you that they're in the scanner putting that stuff in, but all of those documentations and authors are digitized on the web anyway, so it's going to suck that up.
And
So
that's,
they don't have to do it on purpose.
yes.
But without
And
countering documents,
yep.
it becomes a priority. And they say any new decrees, documents, statements, prioritization for them, uploading their knowledge into their knowledge base, um, released within the last 60 years, may or may not be authoritative. Like a little disclaimer. Right?
Right.
But if a newer one comes out and updates a canon or a doctrinal understanding, that document will take precedence.
I'll
That's
use an
kind of
example.
okay.
I'll use an example. So in 1997, that's, what, 20,
30,
almost,
27 years.
yeah. Okay. So it's a bit of a time ago, but no, well, no, it's 18, what, 20, 23 years ago,
97?
97, right?
Yeah,
22, 22
yeah,
years ago.
27.
So,
My daughter was
uh,
born
okay.
then.
Yeah. 27 years ago. So with, with that document, which is titled Always Our Children, and it has grave errors regarding homosexuality and the acceptance and embrace of homosexuality. And it's got awful, awful pastoral advice in there. But that's a fairly recent document. It's a church document. It was produced by the USCCB, which has no authority. Oh, yeah. Yeah. But
Well, they
it's
got the
there.
right cardinal in place now for that.
Oh, of course they do. So, when you have a document like that and you're prioritizing information coming from within the last, 60 years, as opposed to the body of information regarding the Catholic faith, well, now you're going to have a search result that says, well, the Catholic Church says that if your children are gay or lesbian or bisexual or transgender, you have to accept them for who they are and accompany them on their faith journey and bring them into your communities and into your church. And not, you're going to have an algorithm that misinterprets this and certainly puts it forward in direct opposition to what St. Peter Damian wrote in the book of Gomorrah, which outlines all of the damnable errors regarding Sodom. And then, of course, you've got some interpretations fairly recently that say that, well, the sin of Sodom wasn't actually anything sexual, it had everything to do with inhospitality. And there are several things that have been written about that. So, as you're talking about this algorithm, this new Catholic AI that is going to draw from documents, and as you point out, it'll be documents from the Vatican, it'll be documents from various church authorities. They'll be pulling from various sources, which and I'm assuming that since Google was involved, since Facebook is involved, they'll be pulling from those sources as well.
The information's out there. They're definitely gonna pull from them, as well as I think be fed them. I think that their goal is to present balance. They continue to, we talked about this earlier, talk about an area of nuance, the way homilies are prepared. I mean, I think one of the guys said preparing a homily can be tough. It's much better at putting together magisterial teaching conducive to the homily. So to provide that background for the priest homily.
Mm,
Um, and to again, to explain complex theological issues in understandable language. And again, that's first thing, they're dumbing down everybody else and
sure.
assuming that they need to explain these things to you. So how are they going to explain? I keep coming back to extra ecclesia nullis salus because that is probably one of the most difficult teachings for even the most traditional of all of us to accept, because is my Greek Orthodox grandma in heaven. She was, to me, she was a saint. I mean, you really have to, it's a hard thing. That's why I'm in Catholic media. I mean, I'm in mobile, but that's why we do what we do and have our apostolate, because we need to do something. What you do every day, what the Stations of the Cross does every day, helps to save souls. We have an obligation because of that practice, because of that doctrine, to do something about it and evangelize, which is what the church says is the purpose of the AI, is to evangelize. But if you evangelize them in a way that's not correct, you are leading people to damnation, to purgation,
Right.
perdition.
Absolutely. So, this is where, I mean, Pope Francis, for all of his faults, one of the things that he used to focus on, and I'm not so sure he focuses on it so much anymore, was interpersonal interaction. And he would say, stop with the phones, get off your computer, get away from digital media, stop with the social media, talk to people, go interact with people, help the poor, help this person, help that person. He would point out that it's important to actually have person-to-person interaction.
Yeah.
This is where charity is performed. You can't have a charitable act through an algorithm. And I make this case actually through the Lepanto Institute that when it comes to real charity is not philanthropy. Philanthropy is merely philanthropy. You're paying someone to do a job. But charity, if you have a religious order, for instance, and their charism is to go into the community and prayerfully feed the poor and, help the sick, by giving them money and joining them in prayer, you are participating in their charitable act. But if you're paying an organization whose job it is to go dig wells in Africa, well, it's not charity. You're simply paying someone to do a job. And that's the bottom line. So people don't have a proper understanding of charity. They don't have an understanding of human interaction. And it seems to me that this whole push for artificial intelligence coming out of the Vatican is kind of counterintuitive to what Pope Francis had been saying in his own messaging, that you got to have human interaction. Fulton Sheen used to say, no one loves a doctrine. Okay. No one loves a law. You're not going to break down and cry and sob because you realized that you broke the speed limit. Okay. No one's going to do that because you don't love a law, but you love a person and you have a relationship with a person. You interact with a person. That person is Christ. That person is Our Lady. That person is our neighbor. That person is your parents. So all of these interactions, these relationships, are not predicated on gaining knowledge and filling your head with this algorithm or that algorithm, or, it's all about understanding relationships through the church and the economy of grace. And I don't see how this is going to be a tool of evangelization, but actually, as you pointed out, a tool of damnation. I don't see how this is helpful at all.
I don't either. I mean, you can't not, as a church, and even if we look at the corporate church, the Vatican, the Curia, whatever it may be, I mean, I think they have an obligation to be involved, and I think they're right to say, to be the voice, that voice in the wilderness when it comes to the development of embryos and IVF research and all the things that AI could be used for that crosses moral ethics, bioethics. I think that's correct. That's a great role for the church. A, B, the church does need to get its doctrine into a place that's easily accessible. So the question is, how do they, the problem is the people that they, as always, if it be the government here in the United States or anywhere, or unfortunately the Curia, we've had a deep Curia for 1,000 years. Yeah. Men are involved, and where men's involved, Satan's right there somewhere with us, and somebody's got to get this going and make sure. But I don't think it takes 1,000-person committee. I really think that it takes a few good priests to sit there, librarians, and to prioritize and enter information that's just focused on doctrine and dogma, and leave the rest to later. When they talk about canon law and contradictions and calling up the dicastery, the formation of faith, to make sure that this canon law contradiction is adjudicated in the AI. I mean, that's just never going to happen. But the people that are driving it don't have the best intentions for Catholics, let alone the human race. And when you, again, go to Humanity 2.0 and just look at the entire list of their board and their donors. Money, money, money. And then you go to look at the participants in this conference on October, I think it was 6th in Rome. And, well, they're all the same. They're all the same. And what they wanted to avoid was having people that are priests that were too theological. They wanted to have people that were engineers, technicians, that could really speak as peers. This was all the language they were using, so that they respect each other, because we don't want to really deal with differing opinions here. We're here to respect each other as scientific colleagues. So that whole, once again, approach to human problems, and to your point about what's charity, or a corporal act of mercy or a spiritual act of mercy that's involved in actually charity, the way Thomas Aquinas defines it, as our greatest virtue. And it was the opposite. It's built in the vanity of the people that attend, that they're smarter than we are. It's built in the vanity of these large corporations to think that they can drive the behavior, the thinking, and the direction of society so that we flourish.
So here I'm looking at I'm back at Humanity 2.0. I'm going to share the screen for just a second, because I think that people are going to want to see this. This is from the 2024 forum, the one that you attended, Human Flourishing 2024. Look at who sponsored
I was invited. I didn't attend when I
saw.
Oh,
you were invited. Okay.
Because we ended up going in our own direction to build our own AI, because when we saw who was going, we were aghast.
So here's a company, Singularity Net. I'm not familiar with them. The Human Flourishing Program at Harvard Institute for Quantitative Social Science. Now, let me be clear about something. Anytime you see something regarding social science, it's usually akin to sociology, which is a Marxist program. Here you have Positive Psychology Center.
May I insert that the host, the Vatican organizational host, was the Pontifical Society for Social Sciences. Just to throw that out there.
Right.
Now it's starting to make sense.
Yeah, it is starting to make sense. And then you look at the participating organizations, and it's, you've got some organizations, Catholic News Service, EWTN. Okay, so some of the more conservative leaning institutes, but then you have Cisco Systems, which is not very, shall we say, in line with church teaching. Ford Foundation, which is absolutely not in line with church teaching. So you have
UNESCO.
UNESCO. Yep.
And with your CS, your Catholic Relief Services, investigation, you probably ran across UNESCO.
Oh, you bet. You bet. Absolutely. Harvard
no birth control
University.
Here.
Right. So
no abortion
again, so these are the participants and the sponsors of this thing, and it's not who you would expect that would be interested in the best interests of souls and the church. So, and now I do know that there are some in the church that say, well, you can't isolate yourself from the world. You have to work with other people in order to get good things done. You stodgy traditional so-and-so. But the fact of the matter is, when it comes to something as important as this, if you're dealing with the information or an algorithm of information regarding Catholic teaching, you can't allow for error to enter into the mix. And those individuals and institutions who are not in line with church teaching are going to be a part of the problem. And that's a huge, you might as well just open the gates and say, hey, guess what? Any enemy of the church can come right in and start spewing church teaching. Oh, wait, they did that. It's called the Synod on Synodality. That's what it is. This is the AI version of the Synod, isn't it?
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. There's no doubt about it. Both the conference, the participants, the independent software companies, the Humanity 2.0, whatever that actually is, your legionaries, your all these corporate entities, and again, just with Google and others on top of the list, we know their agenda when it comes to Christian teaching, let alone Catholic teaching, right?
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
just go to Google and, when you use a Google phone and, type a text to somebody and it has a predictive text, find a way to type in the capital G-O and see if it completes the word.
Interesting.
You know,
Interesting. It'll
you
probably say
type in
things like,
supercalifragilisticexpialidocious and the three first letters, it'll finish it. You type in G-O, it's not going to finish it.
or JE.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Do you ever see that on your iPhone? It just
Yep.
won't complete it. It won't
Yep.
complete it.
So we're
And
coming
that's
up on
all
the end.
AI.
Yeah. Oh, well, sure. Predictive programming is absolutely part of AI. And in fact, it's kind of interesting. Predictive text. And you had mentioned early on, you were talking about how AI works. You mentioned that one of the things that you would do is come up with an algorithm that would try to anticipate not just what you were going to ask, but kind of an identity footprint of your likes and the things that you look for and the things that you, so that the responses would be more tailored to you. Don't you think that something like that will be introduced into this Catholic AI, that it's going to try and anticipate the kinds of questions that are going to be asked with prearranged and preset answers?
It has to. That's the nature of it, right? Is to improve itself. Why?
Right.
And where financially and where technologically does that matter? Well, the quicker it can answer because it anticipated, the less processing time, the less
Hmm.
servers, right? I mean, there's actually a kind of a very basic, but there's also the risk. And I think, are people trying to subvert the children specifically to lead them to hell? Or do they just not care or believe in Christ the King? So, and not doing anything or concerned about the risk of that misinformation. In the AI world, you call it hallucination, that
Mm.
the machine can hallucinate. It can come up with false information,
Uh-huh.
but it's actually called hallucinating. So your
That's kind
AI
of funny.
can be hallucinating and give you bad information that could lead you to do something bad or to lead you to do something poor. But certainly it's going to be predictive. The question is then, where will it start based on the user trolling other places that you have a personal profile in order to anticipate? That's what we did on the phone. Because on the phone, you've got your Facebook and you have everything else. So we can look in there. We can say, oh, he likes to send a flower emoji on his wife's birthday. So let's, have a florist advertiser put an ad in front of him. So we anonymize the information so it's, anonymous. So we're not violating personal privacy. But why wouldn't the AI do that? Why wouldn't the AI look on all your devices and figure out what you want to hear? There's no reason why it wouldn't, and certainly nothing stopping it from doing that based on the programming and how compliant they are with privacy laws on where you're querying it from, a phone, a computer, or what have you.
So we have a question here. Lisa Evers asks, how much electricity or energy is being used for these huge AI computers?
Well, it's that whole server farms that they're building in Arizona and all that are taking up hundreds of acres. Who knows? I mean, these server farms are massive.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't even begin to guess.
Wow. That's a huge question, probably for another time. We are wrapping up on the end of the program, and I was hoping you could give just a few minutes to talk about the iCatholic Mobile Corporation and talk a little bit about the Station of the Cross as well, because they're both institutions, very good friends of the Lepanto Institute. I encourage everybody to check them out. Please tell them a little bit about these two companies and how they can get involved.
Well, start with the Stations of the Cross Media and the shows that they have there, the talent they have. It's a Catholic radio station that was encouraged by Mother Angelica herself. They are partners with us. They are the beneficiary of our support to the best that we can. Honestly, we're the beneficiary of them, their good Catholic spirit, the Holy Spirit, the Mother Mary, and all those listeners that have really made iCatholic Mobile possible. The Stations of the Cross is saving souls. They've got 20 radio stations in the Northeast. Jim Wright and the team founded it based on like a lot of great Catholic media and radio stations. They weren't anywhere in the radio business. It's just the Holy Spirit made them do it, and they are now a very successful, traditionally focused Catholic radio stations. But they also have the iCatholic radio app, so you can listen, or on the web, you can listen to their programming all day, every day, from anywhere in the country. iCatholic Mobile is a mobile phone company like AT&T or others, but we give virtually all the profits. We have to retain some for upgrading switches and all. We're all retired telecom guys that are doing this for the greater glory of God, and we give all of the profits to the Stations of the Cross and some specific religious orders. And we also subsidize mobile communications, internet connectivity for priests, religious orders, and religious individuals. That's kind of our focus, because we believe in extra ecclesia nihil salus. Nobody can do a better job than you, your colleagues in iCatholic, Catholic Radio and the Station of the Cross. We're a good mobile company. We save people a few shekels most of the time, but at the end of the day, if you're spending money on a mobile, why not help us to help them?
David, thank you so much for being on the program. Ladies and gentlemen, please check out iCatholic Mobile and definitely frequent the Station of the Cross radio station.
Yeah.
Very good friends of our program, very good friends of the Lepanto Institute. Father McTeague is a good personal friend, as is Joe McLean. Two very phenomenal programs that you'd listen to at Station of the Cross. Again,
they're both our customers, and they're great supporters of ours and us of them. We love Father. And by the way, if I can, since I'm not an author, but Father is Christendom Lost and Found. If you join iCatholic, we send out free autographed copies from Father McTeague.
Wonderful. Oh, maybe I'll have to join iMobile Catholic just to get a copy.
God bless you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, please check out iCatholic Mobile, Station of the Cross radio station. David, it's been a pleasure. Why don't we go ahead and close with our prayer? In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus.
Sancta Maria Mater Dei. Pardon me.
Ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen. Our Lady of Victory,
pray for us.
In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. All right, everyone, have a great weekend, and I will see you next week.